in the grand tapestry of biblical history. Among the towering figures and epic tales, there are threads of courage, faith, and quiet leadership that are sometimes overlooked. Today, we turn our focus to one such thread, the story of a woman whose name means bitterness, but whose life was a testament to sweetness, strength, and divine purpose. We're talking about Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Moses and Aaron, and a true hero of the faith. Her story isn't just a footnote in the saga of the Exodus. It's a powerful narrative in its own right, offering profound lessons on leadership, faith, and the incredible impact one person can have when they align their life with God's plan. From a brave young girl standing by a riverbank to a leader guiding a nation, Miriam's journey begins in the darkest of times, reminding us that even in the face of overwhelming oppression, a single act of courage can change the course of history. Let's explore the origins of this remarkable woman. To truly understand Miriam, we must first travel back in time to ancient Egypt, a land not of pyramids and splendor for her people, but of bondage and bitter servitude. The Israelites were enslaved, their backs bent under the whips of Pharaoh's taskmasters. It was into this world of suffering and despair that Miriam was born. Her parents were Amram and Jochebed, both from the tribe of Levi, a lineage that would later be set apart for priestly service to God. Imagine the world she opened her eyes to. A world where her people cried out daily under the weight of oppression, where the future seemed bleak, and where hope was a currency in desperately short supply. She wasn't born into a palace or a place of privilege. She was born into a slave's hut. Her first sounds likely the sighs of her weary parents and the distant cries of her people. This harsh environment, however, did not extinguish the spirit of her family. Instead, it forged it. It was in this crucible of affliction that the foundations of Miriam's unshakable faith and extraordinary courage were laid, preparing her for a destiny she could not yet imagine. The family Miriam was born into was no ordinary family. They were a household of faith, a small flicker of light in the oppressive darkness of Egypt. Her parents, Amram and Jochebed, held fast to the promises of God, nurturing a legacy of hope that they would pass down to their children. This wasn't a passive, quiet faith. It was an active, defiant faith. In a time when the dominant culture was one of pagan gods and human kings who declared themselves divine, Amram and Jochebed chose to worship the one true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They taught their children the stories of their ancestors, reminding them that they were not merely slaves, but the chosen people of God with a promised future. This spiritual inheritance was the most valuable thing they could give their children. It was a heritage of resilience, a belief that their current circumstances were not their final destination. This deep-rooted faith created an environment where miracles could be nurtured, where children could be raised not just to survive, but to believe that God had a special purpose for their lives, even in the midst of slavery. This family legacy was the fertile ground from which three of Israel's greatest leaders would emerge. In this remarkable family, Miriam was the eldest sibling, the firstborn who would watch over her younger brothers, Aaron and Moses. Each of these three siblings would grow to become a pillar of the Israelite nation, yet each had a distinct and separate calling from God. Miriam would be recognized as a prophetess, a spiritual leader and a voice of worship for the people. Her role was one of inspiration and guidance, often expressed through song and praise. Aaron, the middle child, was destined to become the first high priest of Israel. He would be the mediator, the one to stand before God in the tabernacle on behalf of the people, overseeing the sacred rituals and sacrifices. And then there was Moses, the youngest, who was called to be the liberator, the lawgiver, the man who would speak with God face to face and lead the entire nation out of bondage. Think of them as a divine trio: the prophetess, the priest, and the liberator. Each role was essential, and none could have fulfilled their purpose without the others. Miriam's early life, as the watchful older sister, was a foreshadowing of her future role as a guardian and guide for the nation, standing alongside her brothers as they led their people toward the promised land. Miriam's story is a powerful illustration of what we might call spiritual DNA. She was born into the tribe of Levi, the tribe God would later select for his priestly service, while the formal priesthood was designated for the male descendants of Aaron. This Levitical heritage placed Miriam within a lineage deeply connected to the worship and service of God. It was in her blood, so to speak. This wasn't a coincidence, it was a divine positioning. God was weaving the threads of her life together for a specific purpose long before she was even aware of it. Her birth into this family at this specific time in history and in this specific lineage was all part of a master plan. Her early act of courage in watching over her baby brother Moses was not just a sister's love. It was her first step into her divine calling. She was being positioned by God to be a key player in the greatest rescue mission in history. Her Levitical background provided the spiritual foundation, and her personal faith provided the spark that would ignite her life of service. She was, from her very beginning, being prepared to lead, to prophesy, and to stand as a testament to God's faithfulness. Miriam's first and perhaps most defining moment comes when she is just a young girl. After Pharaoh decrees that all newborn Hebrew boys must be thrown into the Nile River, her mother Jochebed defies the order. For 3 months, she hides her newborn son, Moses. But when she can no longer conceal him, she devises a plan born of desperation and faith. She weaves a basket of papyrus, waterproofs it with tar and pitch, and places her precious baby inside. She then sets the small ark among the reeds, along the bank of the Nile. This act alone is one of incredible faith, but it doesn't end there. Jochebed doesn't just leave her son to fate. She stations her daughter, Miriam, at a distance to watch. Can you imagine the weight on this young girl's shoulders? Her family's future, the life of her baby brother, rested in her vigilance. She wasn't just hiding and peeking. She was standing guard, a silent sentinel on a mission of life and death. This moment reveals Miriam's character. She is responsible, brave, and intelligent. She is her mother's trusted partner in this audacious plan to save Moses. It's her first test of leadership, and she passes it with unwavering resolve. The scene at the riverbank is filled with tension. Miriam watches as the basket floats among the reeds, her heart lightly pounding with every ripple in the water. Then, the pivotal moment arrives. Pharaoh's own daughter comes down to the Nile to bathe. She spots the basket and sends her attendant to retrieve it. Upon opening it, she sees the baby boy crying, and her heart is filled with compassion. She immediately knows he is one of the Hebrew children. This is where Miriam's courage truly shines. A typical child might have run away in fear, but not Miriam. Seeing her opportunity, she steps out of the shadows. She doesn't hesitate. She approaches the most powerful woman in the land, a princess of the very kingdom that enslaves her people. And she speaks. She boldly asks, "Shall I go and get you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" It's a brilliant, audacious question. She doesn't plead or beg. She offers a solution. Her quick thinking and bravery turn a moment of potential disaster into a moment of divine opportunity. She doesn't just save her brother's life. She ingeniously arranges for him to be raised by his own mother, all under the protection and funding of the Egyptian palace. Miriam's intervention was a stroke of strategic genius, guided by a wisdom beyond her years. When Pharaoh's daughter agrees to her proposal, Miriam runs and fetches the one person she knows can be trusted above all others, her own mother, Jochebed. The princess, unaware of the connection, hires Jochebed to nurse the baby. In a beautiful twist of divine irony, Moses' mother is paid by the Egyptian crown to raise her own son. Through Miriam's quick-witted courage, Moses is not only saved from death, but is given the best possible start in life. He receives the loving care of his biological mother and is instilled with the faith and heritage of his people during his most formative years. At the same time, he is protected by the royal household, granting him an education and status that no other Hebrew child could dream of. Miriam's single act of bravery didn't just save one life, it preserved the future leader of Israel, ensuring that the man chosen by God to liberate his people would be uniquely prepared for his monumental task. It's a powerful reminder that God can use anyone, even a young girl, to execute his perfect plan, and that one act of courage can have ripples that last for generations. As we reflect on this early chapter of Miriam's life, we see the blueprint for the leader she would become. Her story teaches us that courage is not the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. It teaches us that faith is not passive waiting, but active participation in God's plan, watching for opportunities and stepping out boldly when they appear. Miriam didn't have a title or a position of authority when she stood by the Nile. She was just a sister, a daughter from an oppressed people, yet her faithfulness in that small, hidden role had a world-changing impact. Her legacy begins here, by the water's edge, as a young girl who dared to speak up, who used her intelligence to navigate a dangerous situation, and whose love for her family and her God set in motion the liberation of an entire nation. She is a testament to the truth that our origins do not define our destiny, and that God often plants the seeds of greatness in the most unlikely soil. Her story is an invitation for us to be watchful, to be brave, and to trust that God can use our lives for purposes far beyond what we can see. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the early life of Miriam. Her story is far from over, and in future discussions, we will explore her role as a prophetess and leader during the Exodus and beyond. If you found this story inspiring, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next part of this incredible narrative. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What lessons do you draw from Miriam's courage as a young girl? Until next time, may you find your own courage to act faithfully in the role God has given you. Thanks for watching. Have you ever wondered what true courage looks like? It's not always a warrior on a battlefield. Sometimes it's a young girl standing by a river, holding the fate of her family, and indeed her entire nation, in her small hands. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful stories of faith, hope, and incredible bravery, the story of Miriam. Our story begins in ancient Egypt, a land of pyramids and pharaohs. But for the Hebrew people living there, it was a land of suffering. They were enslaved, forced into hard labor, and their numbers were growing. This scared the Pharaoh, the powerful king of Egypt. He was afraid that one day the Hebrews might rise up against him. So he made a terrible, cruel decree. Every newborn Hebrew boy was to be thrown into the Nile River. Imagine the terror and heartbreak that swept through the Hebrew community. Every cry of a newborn son was a sound of fear. In the midst of this darkness, a Hebrew woman named Jochebed gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. She and her husband Amram already had 2 children, a daughter named Miriam and a son named Aaron. When Jochebed looked at her new baby, she saw he was special, and her heart refused to obey the Pharaoh's command. For 3 months, she hid him. 3 months of whispered lullabies, of stifled cries, of constant, gnawing fear that any moment a soldier could burst through their door. But a baby can't be hidden forever. His cries grew louder, his wiggles stronger. Jochebed knew she couldn't keep him safe in their small home much longer. With a heavy heart, but with a flicker of desperate faith, she devised a plan. She took a basket made of papyrus reeds and waterproofed it with tar and pitch. It became a tiny ark, a vessel of hope. She gently placed her precious son inside, her tears likely mixing with the waters of the Nile, as she set the basket among the reeds along the riverbank. This wasn't an act of abandonment. It was an act of profound trust in God. She was placing her son into God's hands, but she didn't leave him completely alone. She had a secret weapon, a guardian angel in the form of her young daughter, Miriam. She instructed Miriam to watch from a distance, to see what would happen to her baby brother. Can you picture it? A young girl, maybe no older than 10 or 12, hiding among the tall grasses, her heart pounding in her chest. Every ripple in the water, every bird that flew by must have startled her. She was on a mission of immense importance. Her eyes were fixed on that little basket, the most precious cargo in the world. She wasn't just watching a basket, she was guarding a promise. As the sun climbed higher, a royal procession approached the river. It was Pharaoh's own daughter, the princess, coming with her attendants to bathe. Miriam must have held her breath, her small body frozen in place. The princess noticed the strange basket floating among the reeds. Curiosity piqued. She sent one of her maids to retrieve it. When she opened the lid and saw the baby inside, it was crying. The princess's heart was moved with compassion. She knew immediately what this was. "This is one of the Hebrew children," she said. This was the moment, the critical split-second opportunity. A moment that could change everything. Miriam could have stayed hidden, paralyzed by fear. She was just a slave girl standing before royalty. But she didn't. Filled with a courage far beyond her years, she stepped out from her hiding place. She approached the princess, a bold and risky move. She didn't panic. she didn't cry. With incredible cleverness and poise, she asked a simple, brilliant question. "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" Think about the genius of that question. She didn't reveal her connection to the baby. She presented a solution to the princess's problem. Here was a baby, and babies need milk. The princess, who had just decided to adopt this child, needed a wet nurse. Miriam's suggestion was practical, logical, and perfectly timed. The princess, likely impressed by the girl's resourcefulness, simply said, "Yes, go, Miriam, run." She didn't just walk, she ran. Imagine the joy, the relief, the adrenaline coursing through her. She ran straight home and brought back her own mother, Jochebed. Standing before the princess, Jochebed must have struggled to contain her emotions as the princess handed her own son back to her. And then, the most incredible twist of all, the princess said, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." Let that sink in. Because of Miriam's courage and quick thinking, Jochebed was now being paid by the Egyptian crown to raise her own son, safely and openly. The very child who was sentenced to death by the Pharaoh was now under the protection of the Pharaoh's own daughter. The threat of death was replaced with a royal salary. It's a plan so perfect. You know, it had to be divinely inspired. Jochebed got to nurse her son, whisper her family's stories in his ear, and instill in him the faith of his people. She named him Moses, which means to draw out, because, as the princess said, "I drew him out of the water." Miriam's role in this story is absolutely central. Without her watchful eye and her brave heart, the story of Moses, the future leader and deliverer of Israel, would have ended right there in the Nile. Her actions teach us so much. They teach us about the power of faith, not as a passive hope, but as an active, courageous trust that propels us to do the right thing even when we're scared. Miriam didn't know how it would all turn out. She just knew she had to watch, and she had to act when the moment came. This story also shines a beautiful light on the bond between siblings. Miriam wasn't just following an order. She was protecting her little brother with every fiber of her being. Her love fueled her courage. It's a powerful reminder that we are often called to be guardians for those we love, to stand in the gap for them, to be their advocate when they cannot speak for themselves. And finally, it shows us that God can use anyone, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, to accomplish His great purposes. He used the faith of a mother, the compassion of a princess, and the quick-witted courage of a young girl to save the man who would one day lead his people to freedom. Miriam's story is not just a prelude to Moses's, it is a powerful testimony in its own right. It's a story of how one small act of bravery, rooted in love and faith, can ripple through history and change the world. So the next time you feel small or scared or powerless, remember Miriam. Remember the girl by the river who stood her ground, spoke with wisdom, and saved her brother. Her legacy is a timeless call to courage, a reminder that faith isn't about the absence of fear, but about acting in spite of it. Thanks for watching today. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of incredible faith and courage from history. Let me know in the comments what part of Miriam's story stands out most to you. Until next time, stay brave. The dust of the desert stings the air. The salty temps of the sea is on everyone's lips, and the ground beneath their feet is still damp. Imagine the scene: an entire nation, millions of people, standing on the far side of the Red Sea. Just moments ago, they were slaves, running for their lives, trapped between a charging army and an impassable body of water. Now, they are free. The water that parted for them has crashed back down, swallowing their oppressors whole. The sound is deafening: the roar of the sea, the cries of relief, the shouts of disbelief. In the midst of this overwhelming, chaotic joy, one woman steps forward. Her name is Miriam. She isn't a young girl anymore. She's a woman who has seen decades of hardship, who has carried the hope of her people in her heart. In her hand, she holds a simple instrument, a tambourine. She catches the eye of another woman, then another and another. A rhythm begins, a steady, joyful beat that cuts through the noise. She begins to sing, her voice rising in a powerful, spontaneous anthem of praise. Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. This wasn't a planned performance. This was a raw, unfiltered explosion of worship, born from a heart overflowing with gratitude. The women of Israel join her, their own tambourines and voices creating a symphony of celebration. They dance, not with choreographed steps, but with the uninhibited joy of people who have just witnessed the impossible. This is Miriam, the worship leader, leading the very first recorded worship service of the newly freed nation of Israel. She didn't wait for a stage or a spotlight. She saw God's power, and she simply had to respond. Her worship was immediate, authentic, and contagious. But Miriam was more than just a worship leader. The Bible gives her another incredibly significant title: Prophetess, in Exodus 15:20. She is Kayet, Miriam the prophetess. This wasn't a casual label. In that culture, a prophet or prophetess was someone who stood in the counsel of God, someone who heard his voice and spoke his words to the people. It implies a deep, intimate relationship with the Creator. It means that while Moses was on the mountain receiving the law and Aaron was serving as the high priest, Miriam was also a vital spiritual leader, hearing from God and guiding the people. Think about what this meant. Miriam was part of a leadership trio. The prophet Micah, centuries later, would quote God as saying, "I sent Moses to lead you," also Aaron and Miriam. God himself places her name alongside her two famous brothers. She wasn't just Moses' sister. She was a leader in her own right, with her own unique calling and anointing. Her prophetic gift likely meant she provided wisdom, guidance, and spiritual insight to the community, especially to the women. She was a source of divine encouragement, a spiritual mother to a fledgling nation finding its way in the wilderness. Her story actually begins long before the Red Sea. Remember the baby in the basket floating among the reeds of the Nile? That was Moses. And who was the brave young girl watching from a distance, making sure he was safe? That was Miriam. Even as a child, she demonstrated incredible courage, wisdom, and faith. She boldly approached Pharaoh's daughter and cleverly arranged for her own mother to nurse the baby Moses. From a young age, God was preparing her for a life of leadership and influence. She was a protector, a strategist, and a key player in God's salvation plan from the very beginning. Her life wasn't without its challenges. Of course, the wilderness is a place that tests everyone, and leaders are no exception. There was a moment when Miriam and Aaron questioned Moses' leadership, a mistake for which Miriam was judged severely. But this part of her story is also crucial because it shows her humanity. It reminds us that even the most gifted and anointed leaders are still human. More importantly, it shows us God's grace. Moses interceded for her, and she was restored to the community. Her mistake didn't define her entire legacy. Her restoration is a powerful testament to God's forgiveness and His commitment to His chosen leaders. So what is the legacy of Miriam that we can carry with us today? First, it's the power of authentic, passionate worship. Miriam teaches us that worship isn't about perfection. It's about response. It's about seeing what God has done and letting your heart overflow in praise wherever you are, with whatever you have even. If it's just a simple tambourine and a joyful dance, she models a worship that is uninhibited and community-focused, drawing others in to celebrate God's goodness together. Second, Miriam's life shatters our preconceived notions about who God can use. She was a woman in a patriarchal society, yet God raised her up to be a prophetess and a national leader. Her story is a powerful declaration that God is not limited by gender, age, or social status. He looks for a willing heart, a courageous spirit, and an ear tuned to His voice. He is looking for Miriam's today people who will stand in the gap, speak His truth, and lead others in worship with passion and integrity. Finally, her story is a call to spiritual sensitivity. As a prophetess, she was attuned to the movements of God. She saw His hand at the riverbank. She felt His power at the Red Sea, and she heard His voice in the wilderness. She challenges us to cultivate that same sensitivity, to watch for God's work in our daily lives, to listen for His whispers, and to be ready to respond when He calls. Miriam's journey from a watchful sister by the Nile to a prophetic leader in the wilderness is a testament to a life lived in faith and service to God. She wasn't just a footnote in her brother's story. She was a headline in her own right. A powerful woman of God whose legacy of worship and leadership continues to inspire us thousands of years later. Let's remember her not just as Moses' sister, but as Miriam the prophetess, the worship leader, the woman who danced. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the incredible figures of the Bible. We'll see you in the next video. Miriam's song. There's something absolutely powerful in music when it's born from a heart overflowing with genuine gratitude. It's not about impeccable vocal technique. It's not about sophisticated arrangements or studio production. It's about truth, about real emotion, about a legitimate encounter between the human soul and the divine. And that's exactly what happened when Miriam took her tambourine and opened her mouth to sing after crossing the Red Sea. That song wasn't in a hymnal, hadn't been previously rehearsed, didn't have written sheet music. It was pure inspiration of the moment. It was the Holy Spirit moving through her in a spontaneous and irresistible way. The words that came out of Miriam's mouth were simple, but carried gigantic theological weight. Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. He has thrown the horse and its rider into the sea. That's it. No beating around the bush, no complicated metaphors, no elaborate language, just a direct and powerful declaration of what God had done. And you know why this worked so well? Because it was truth. Those people had just seen with their own eyes the sea opening, had walked between walls of water, had seen the Egyptian army being swallowed by the wave. They didn't need elaborate theology at that moment. They needed to express the obvious. God had triumphed gloriously, and they were alive because of it. Miriam's song became a hymn of freedom, a cry of victory that echoed through the desert and was recorded forever in the pages of God's word. And when we think about this, we realize that music has always had a fundamental role in the life with God of the chosen people. It wasn't just entertainment or culture. It was a powerful spiritual tool of connection, memory, and proclamation. When you sing something, you internalize it in a much deeper way than when you just read or hear it. The melody sticks in the mind. The words keep hammering in the heart. And before you realize it, it has become part of who you are. Miriam knew this instinctively. She understood that that moment needed to be marked, not only in the collective memory of the people, but also an artistic expression that could be repeated, retold, sung from generation to generation. And she was right. Centuries later, we're still talking about Miriam's song. We're still being inspired by that moment of pure and authentic worship. This shows us that when you use your gifts to glorify God, when you become a Christian channel through which worship flows, the impact transcends the present moment and reaches eternity. Now, let's think about the practical context of it all. Miriam wasn't in a beautiful service, in a comfortable temple, with air conditioning and professional sound system. She was in the desert, probably covered with dust, tired from the walk, surrounded by thousands of people in precarious situation. There was no stage, no spotlights, no politely applauding audience. There was only her, the tambourine, and a multitude of women who were as full of gratitude as she was. And it was in this imperfect scenario that one of the most beautiful moments of worship in the Bible happened. God doesn't wait for perfect moments for you to worship Him. You don't need a perfect singing voice or a fancy setup to be in a special place. Just go for it. He just needs you to have a grateful heart and willing to express that thanks. Miriam could have thought, "Oh, it's not the right time. Oh, people will think it's strange. Oh, I should wait for the men to lead this." But no, she felt a strong urge to worship and just went for it. And when she did this, she created a movement. Other women joined her. Worship multiplied. What started with one person and a tambourine became a collective celebration that glorified God in an extraordinary way. Miriam's song also teaches us about the importance of celebrating the victories God gives us. Sometimes we're so quick to forget what God did, so focused on the next challenges, that we don't even stop to thank for the blessings we've already received. Israel had just been freed from 400 years of slavery. 400 years. And they had just witnessed one of the greatest miracles of all time, that deserved to be celebrated, deserved to be sung, deserved to be kept in the heart indelibly. Miriam led this celebration, creating a spiritual milestone in that people's history. She said through music, "Look what God did. Don't forget, always remember that He is powerful. He is faithful, He keeps His promises. This memory would be essential in the difficult days ahead, when the people wanted to give up, when the temptation to return to Egypt knocked at the door. They could look back and remember, but God opened the sea for us. He destroyed our enemies. He freed us. And this memory, kept and reinforced by Miriam's song, would be an anchor of hope in God in moments of tribulation. So, when you experience a victory, when God does something extraordinary in your life, celebrate, sing, dance, express your gratitude, because this memory will sustain you when spiritual warfare tightens and you need to remember who God is and what He is capable of doing.